Wrestling. Wrestling? Wrestling. Yeah, wrestling. I am currently watching Starrcade 1994 on the WWE Network. It's pretty good. It's not the worst event in the world, but it's not the best. But a lot of the WCW events from the early 90s, even before Hulk Hogan showing up, were pretty good. They were on par with WWE, even though they may not have had the big names. I mean, any Cactus Jack Vader match was great. If you've ever watched a Cactus Jack Vader match, you know why. Kevin Sullivan was the Brian Pillman loose cannon gimmick before Brian Pillman was the loose cannon. And then he became nuts, but that was because of Hulk Hogan. And then we had Evad, and he was Evad, and that was kind of offensive. For those who don't know who Evad is, his name was Dave, but he was dyslexic, so they called him Evad. That's a little offensive. Like a black person who eats fried chicken, which is every black person. But yeah, they had talent. I mean, I've watched some from 93. I've watched some from 94. This is actually one of the few I've watched with Hogan when he came into the company. And we got also on the match Sting versus Earthquake, who's going as Avalanche, and that was good. Sullivan and Mr. T, which was Sullivan and Mr. T. I mean, Kevin Sullivan was a brawler, and Mr. T got his ass beat. But yeah, you started seeing them relying on the WWF talent, because this is when the Nasty Boys came in and stuff. But the early WCW, you had the DDP, who was a manager and later became a wrestler as a villain, and was a good villain. He was out in pink, which was just kind of weird, but anyways, he was still DDP. You had Harlem Heat come in, and Harlem Heat was an amazing tag team. Let's face facts, they were good before they were supposed to be good. And that's what made them good. If you understood that, you understood the eccentricities of my insane mind. You had Vader in there, and Vader was always awesome. See, on this show, you got to see Vader versus Jim Duggan, which was decent. But it was no Vader Cactus Jack. You know, you had Johnny B. Bad. I've never liked Johnny B. Bad. And they had him face Arn Anderson, and I've never liked Arn Anderson. So I could have just, like, fast-forwarded through that entire match, but I didn't. I'll get to those two later. So WCW was actually good during the early 90s, before Hogan showed up. And because they had a lot of really good, talented people. And these people could carry the show and could put on good matches. But the problem is, WWF had the names, and WCW was only big in the South. And so that's what held WCW back till they had the names and started to hemorrhage money. The thing is with WCW, though, was they actually might have put on better shows. Because they didn't have those people to rely on. So they had to put on decent shows to show off their talent, because they didn't have the people to rely on. So people, if you got the WWE Network, go back and watch some WCW from the early 90s. If you don't, go on YouTube. There's a dozen pay-per-views always from early 90s WCW on there. There always is. There's Clashes of Champions. There's Starrcades. Before they had the big talent. Before Hulk Hogan. Go back and watch them. You're going to be surprised at how good it is without the lazy, useless people like Hogan.